Welcome to the Dripping in Black podcast, where we celebrate Black excellence throughout the Black diaspora. Here's your host, David V. Lewis.
What's up, good people all across the world? This is the Dripping in Black podcast. I am your host, David V. Lewis. And per usual, we have another fantastic guest who represents Black excellence in the Black diaspora. Today's guest is Natia Mclendon. Tia, say hello to the world.
Hello, world.
All right. And so Tia happens to be a very good friend of mine. We met at Robichaud High School. What year was that? Do you remember?
So I got there in 2011. What year did you get there?
Yeah, so I think it had to be 2013 actually, because Inkster closed in 2013 in the summer, and so I got there in the fall of 2013, and we became fast friends pretty much right immediately.
Yeah.
At Robichaud High School, and so she's an educator by trade, right?
Yep.
I would say she was the best teacher in the building. When she was in our building, and she left us for reasons we won't discuss on this podcast.
Nah.
Yeah, but for full transparency, very good, very personal friend of mine, and happy to have her on. Not about education though, however, so we'll get into why she's on the Dripping in Black podcast. But we always like to introduce our guests to our audience by asking the very simple but not so simple question of who are they? So who is Natia Mclendon?
Very loaded question. That's just a huge one right there. I have a saying that I go by. Life is an ing. So I'm always changing, moving, living. So for me, I am truly a human being. ING, I am being. So obviously a Christ follower, a teacher, a family member to many different people, a sister, a wife.
Yeah.
All of these things, but I'm changing all the time. So more than anything, I'm a human being.
Okay.
An ING.
Human being. Where were you born and raised?
I was born and raised in Detroit.
Okay.
Detroit,
East side, west side.
Now you already know. West side? You already know that.
Put those streets out there for, we like to have the streets and stuff too.
Right. So I grew up in a lot of different places. So I lived off of Rutland and Plymouth, I would say in my kind of younger years. Yeah, real rough. It's only like 2 houses on the block right now.
That's almost east side.
Come on. And then I would say my formative years, like a lot of my memories, Whitcomb in Chicago.
Okay.
Yeah, so I went to Cody High School, so it's always Joy Road love there. But yeah.
Yep. So Cody High School, and where did you matriculate from there?
So after Cody, I went to Western Michigan University, go Broncos, and was there for a substantial amount of time, longer than I needed to be there. I got my secondary education degree there, English specifically. And after that, I took some time to teach. And then I went back to school to get my master's at U of M Dearborn. And I have a master's in sociology. I'm all over the place.
Go Blue. All right. And so we got you on because you started a new venture.
I did.
Yeah, that new venture is called Break Bread 246. So I'm curious about the name, but I want to go back before you jump into that and just talk a little bit about your education career. So you started when, and how long have you been in education?
Yeah, so I like to say that I was doing my student teaching in 2008, but I was pulled out of my student teaching to actually teach one of the classes. A teacher went on to maternity leave, and they were like, hey, you seem like a strong for this, why don't you go in there and finish out the semester? So I think my teaching career started then because I wasn't supervised. I had my own class in a sense. So I have really been teaching since 2008.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. And what is your role now?
So I'm still an English teacher, but I recently received a promotion, and I'm an instructional coach.
Okay.
At the school I'm at now, which is Detroit Leadership Academy.
All right. And so that's your bread and butter, if you will, in terms of your job. But then you have this new business that you ventured off into called Break Bread 246. So let's talk about that. What is Break Bread 246?
Okay. So obviously the name has some symbolism to it. But before I get into that, Break Bread. So there are a couple of things that I love. So I love to teach. I love community, and I love food. Like those things I adore. So Break Bread is basically a culmination of all of those things put together. So.
Yeah. And the phrase break bread, that's kind of a common phrase that we use. And, that's people getting together, community, and having good conversation, right? It's not just about the food per se.
Right.
All right. So Break Bread, the 246.
So Break Bread, obviously you hit it on the head. It is about community, it's about coming together. The 246 portion is actually Acts 246. And that is the break bread passage in the Bible. So they broke bread together with glad and sincere hearts. So obviously, as a person who loves God, that's a very integral part of the community piece for me. So that's pretty much the reason why that is there. I mean, and all of this to me kind of stems. It's like organically coming from connections with people, spiritual connections with people. And I think food lends itself to that. Food is just one of those things that, it draws people together.
Yeah.
So I love it so much.
Yeah. All right. So what happens at Break Bread 246?
Lots happens. So firstly, we just started. This has been a passion of mine for quite some time. I had the LLC back in 2018 and just kind of sat on it. I had some imposter syndrome that I was battling because I'm not a trained chef. I worked at a particular place where I worked with trained chefs, and I learned a ton. And my palate, so to speak, for learning about food just increased. And that's kind of where a lot of that desire to start my own business came from.
Okay.
So at Break Bread, we the whole vision is community, and of course, learning technique, learning skill in terms of the dish. So I am the lead instructor. I'm the instructor. I'm the chef, head chef, and I'm basically leading my guests into whatever we are cooking for that space. So for instance, this last time we did an ode to bread, kind of as a nod to the company name. And we did an artisan bread from scratch. We did a flatbread pizza from scratch, had some really fun toppings on that. And then we did a strawberry shortcake. And obviously all of it is from scratch with your hands. I'm not just demoing, everyone is doing it with me, right? So that's the fun part. That's the community part. You get to laugh, you get to, make mistakes. And I think that's another thing that is important for me in these classes. You can make mistakes. That's obviously something that you learn as a teacher. This is a community where failure is okay because we're going to fail forward.
Yeah. All right. So how does a person become a part of the class?
Yeah, so obviously this is a business where I also would like to make a couple of dollars, you know. So, we have tickets go on sale through Eventbrite, and I usually announce that on social media. Yeah, that's pretty much how people know about it. Some of it is definitely word of mouth. My brother is he's my sous chef, so he works at another school, so he lets people know about it. My husband is basically the CFO and COO, and he's in the medical field, and he lets people know about it. So it's just a lot of word of mouth and social media right now, if you want to sign up for a class.
Yeah. And is there a capacity? Is there a cutoff point at some point?
Yep. So the cap for me is 12, considering the space that we're in. And it's just a really good 12, I think, is a great number. Kind of into the biblical part of it, but 12 is a really great number of people. It's not too much, it's not too small, it still feels intimate, but people can kind of work with different people or get to know the folks next to them. Still a really good setting.
Yeah. All right. And so what's the next event for Break Bread?
So our next event is on December 11th. We're still trying to work out some menu things because we want it to be exciting. Once again, I love food, and it's not just a passive love of food. I'm a teacher, and I'm an English teacher, so it's like the technique. If I was like, let me not, I was going to say, if I was a social studies teacher. No, but
the details wouldn't matter that much.
No, they wouldn't.
The overall picture is what matters.
But so we're still working on what the menu is going to be, because obviously we want it to be something really fun and exciting for folks, and still have some technical skill to it as well.
Yeah. So now I want to ask a few questions about. So you start a business. I'm always intrigued by this. You have a job. Your husband has a great job, and now you want to venture off into entrepreneurship. How do you go from the idea of it to the actual, tangible creating a business? Kind of walk us through that as if somebody's watching that has no clue on how to do it.
So I don't even feel, it's funny that you asked that to me, because I don't even feel like I'm warranted to answer. Like, I just don't feel like.
Well, just tell us what you did.
I am. But I think that's a really important part of it, though, that I never saw myself as an entrepreneur. I think teachers feel like their own classroom is their own universe. Like, you're the entrepreneur of your class. So I never felt the need to go and do my own thing. But this passion was just so great to fuse these three things that I love: food, community, and teaching, on my own terms. So once again, I have had the idea for some time. I just got my LLC online through, what's the company called? I forget the company. Sorry. Okay. But you can go online and get your LLC for a particular fee, and get all the articles of incorporation and things like that. I actually started the company out as a nonprofit, and I wanted to switch gears. I actually do have a nonprofit. Haven't got that off the ground yet, but I wanted to switch the Break Bread to an LLC. So that took a lot of work. I had to go through LARA, which is, Michigan's licensing association. Yeah. And I obviously on that end, it's a lot of work. But then there's the mental space where you're battling imposter syndrome, because anytime you're going into something that is not necessarily your gift set or what people would deem like, this isn't your profession, like, you're a teacher, like, why are you doing this? So I had to battle some of that too. Like, okay, this is, although I'm not a trained chef, I can still explore my passions in this way. So obviously getting all the paperwork, and then I'm very, very grateful for my husband, because he has been a very significant part in getting this off the ground. He is very organized, and he, the finances and stuff. When it comes to that sort of brain, what is that, right or left brain? Which brain is that, right or left?
I think the left brain is the more creative brain, but y'all can correct me on that.
Teachers over here talking about which brain is it?
Yeah, I think I tend to think the left brain is the one that's the more creative, and the right is the more analytical.
Yeah.
I think.
So he was definitely a big part of the logistical aspect, and like looking for kitchen space, because I don't have my own kitchen right now. That's definitely in the makings, far in the future, but looking for kitchen space was a big thing, because a lot of places either had a lot of COVID restrictions, they weren't renting out space, and then there were some places where it was just incredibly expensive. Like, I cannot pay you $200 an hour.
Right.
Can't do that.
Right.
So, right.
And make it make sense, right?
And make it make sense. It just doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, it's a lot there. So you have some challenges with just, being new to the field. You had some challenges with going from nonprofit to for-profit. And then you have some internal challenges with imposter syndrome, but yet you still did it. So I'm curious about what drove you to continue with all of those obstacles.
Right. So I think it was just the passion for it. And I think that when you have a passion that's deep within you, you should not ignore it. Especially if you feel like it's something that's God-given. Yeah. So, and this isn't too far off. Like, this isn't like I want to become an astronaut, which if I did, do your thing, girl, but it's not too far off from what I do. You know what I'm saying? So it's teaching. And teaching is one of those transferable skills that just transcends the classroom.
Yeah. Yes, indeed.
And instead of putting, I think a lot of times as women, as Black people, as Black women, we're told you need to stay within this box, and play your role. And I think people are getting to know, like, oh, there is no box. First of all, the box doesn't even exist. We've been told that there's this box that we need to stay in, but the box is not even there.
Yeah.
And it's the fear of stepping out from that. Yeah. But I have a friend who has shirts, and the shirts say, "Do it afraid." And I think that's the biggest part. Like,
wow, just
keep going.
Yeah.
Because you can't, it's kind of like, if you want patience, you have to wait in line. Like, you can't ask God for patience, or ask somebody for patience. And it's like, you're never tested. So if you want courage, you're going to have to be faced with some fearful situations. You're going to be afraid.
Yeah.
If you're going to push out that courage in some way, then you just got to do it. You got to go.
Yeah. Yeah. Great lessons there. Just got to do it. Right. All right. So I got a couple of more questions. So I always like to ask this question. So you've started your business, you got it going, where you want it to go, right? Let's look at where we are and where you would like for it to be. All right. And now you have a switch that you can flip and you are there. All right. How does that look different? So where you are now, we flip the switch and it's where you want it to be. Paint a picture for me. What does that look like?
Wow. I wish I had these questions beforehand, because that's
no
question. That's difficult. You know why it's difficult? Because I literally just started. So I think back in 2018, I wanted to be here. I wanted to have begun. I wanted to have started. So for me to conceptualize what it could be, the possibilities, I feel like I'm still getting my footing on what the possibilities are, because remember, for so long, I was in that box.
Yeah.
I thought I needed to stay there. I thought I needed, so now I'm like up for fresh air, right? Yeah. And as I continue, maybe next year when I've done maybe 10 classes or 15, I'll have more of a vision. But right now, if I'm being honest, right now is like, this is a great space that I'm in.
Yeah. And so ultimately, when I'm asking questions, I'm posing it to the guests, but I'm always thinking about the audience, and in particular, as a teacher, thinking about younger people as they view it and how they can be inspired and how they can learn, and so I think that's a valuable lesson in itself, to be okay with where you are and just kind of working that, right?
Yeah.
All right. I think I wanted to ask you a question about some advice you would give yourself now that you know what you know. What's some advice you would give yourself? But I think you kind of tackled that. All right. So I want to get to the most important question that we always ask our guests. Are you ready?
I think so. I'm nervous now.
All right. The most important question is, have you ever been on the cover of a magazine?
I have not, unfortunately.
No teacher magazine?
Never.
No AKA magazine?
Never.
Okay.
Never. I guess I think I don't have the face for it or something. I don't know.
Well. So this is actually pretty historical for Dripping in Black, because I believe you are the first AKA guest that we've had. Yeah, I have to double check with my producer, but I know we've had a few deltas, but I think you are the first AKA as a guest.
Okay, all right.
But no covers for you. Well, here at the Dripping in Black podcast, we aim to please. And one of the things that we do for all of our guests is we place them on the Dripping in Black magazine cover. And so my producer, S2, Sean Smith, will pull up your magazine cover for you.
Oh, wow.
All right.
How special.
Yep. And
I'm official now.
That is your first cover. That is also a parting gift that we will provide for you. We will print it out and get it sent to you at a later date as a thanks for coming out to the Dripping in Black podcast.
Well, thank you. I so appreciate it.
Yep. All right, go ahead and drop your social media so people know to reach out. And then again, you have an event that's coming up pretty soon in short order. So remind the audience of that as well.
Yeah, so you guys can follow us on Instagram at breakbread246. And our next class is actually December 11th. And we're going to have that posted. Tickets will be on sale very soon, probably within the week. So you can definitely check us out. We're excited to break bread with you.
All right. We will give our thanks to Natia Mclendon, aka Tia Mac, for coming on to the Dripping in Black podcast. Great to see you, homie.
Good seeing you too. It's always a pleasure.
Yep. And we will talk to you soon. We'll ask the audience to hang on for the final segment, the last drip. But thanks again to Natia Mclendon.
Or just Tia.
Joining us.
So cool.
Up next, the last drip.
A Dripping in Black thanks to Natia Mclendon for joining us and sharing her story and inspirational passion in all that she does. However, we have reached the final segment of our podcast called The Last Drip. The Last Drip is the last opportunity for us to squeeze in a bit more of Black excellence for you. In this final segment, we highlight a common thread between our guests and our vast and rich African American history. For this episode, we highlight a modern day history maker by the name of Rashara Sanders. Born in 1989, Sanders was raised by her mom in a Habitat for Humanity housing project in Bridgeport, Connecticut. Though her mom struggled with drug addiction, she had a passion for cooking that she passed on to her daughter, Rashara. Like Tia, cooking became a passion for Sanders at a very young age. At the age of 17, Sanders would enlist in the Army in order to utilize the GI Bill to pay her way through the Culinary Institute of America, also known as CIA. After serving 2 tours in the Army, Sanders would eventually graduate from CIA in 2014. But during her time at CIA, she had just one Black instructor, a male instructor at that. In 2015, Sanders won Food Network's cooking competition show, Chopped. In 2020, at 30 years old, Sanders became the first Black female instructor at the Culinary Institute of America, a prestigious organization that had been in existence since 1946. As of 2020, Rashara Sanders was chef de partie at Oceana Manhattan, New York, one of the big restaurants, prestigious restaurants in New York City. Like our guest, Natia Mclendon, Chef Rashara Sanders intends to use her passion and skill for cooking to uplift her community. For her groundbreaking accomplishments and future outlook, she is this episode's last drip. For more on Chef Rashara Sanders, check out intheknow.com, nypost.com, chefworks.co.uk, finedininglovers.com, and nbcnews.com. My thanks to all of these websites for the knowledge. finedininglovers.com has a great podcast interview in which Rashara Sanders gives a detailed account of her own life. I advise you to check that out if you are interested in her story. Great story, very well spoken, very accomplished young lady at this young point in her life. So check her out when you get a chance. The Dripping in Black podcast can be found on most popular podcast platforms for its audio, and you can find our video version on the DIBK channel on YouTube, as well as on Facebook Watch. Remember to subscribe, comment, like, share, and most importantly, tell a friend to tell a friend. Also, you can like us and follow us on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram at DIBK20. My thanks to all of our listeners, viewers, supporters, and subscribers. And until next time, be kind, be loving, and be excellent on purpose. It is a choice.
You have just experienced a Dripping in Black production.